Imagine you found a golden key buried deep in the sand on a lonely beach. This key opens a heavy wooden box that has been locked for a very long time. Inside that box are secrets that could change everything you think you know about a famous princess. What if I told you that there is a story about Meghan Markle that was never supposed to be told to the world? It is a story that stays hidden in the shadows, away from the bright lights of the palace and the flashing cameras of the news. For a long time, people have whispered about Meghan's life before she met her prince. They wondered where she went and who she knew. But now, someone from inside the royal family is speaking up. Sarah Ferguson, who people call Fergie, says she knows the truth. She says there is a chapter in Meghan's book of life that was meant to stay shut forever. This story does not start with a fancy wedding or a beautiful dress. It starts far away on the deep blue ocean, on a giant, expensive boat called a yacht. On this boat, there were no reporters and no rules. This is where the mystery begins, and once you hear it, you will never look at the royal family the same way again. It is like a puzzle where the pieces are finally starting to fit together, but the picture they make is very dark and very strange. Get ready, because we are going to look at the evidence that was never meant to be seen. What you are about to hear is something that was never supposed to be shared with regular people like us. It was a secret kept behind big, heavy doors. But once you know this secret, you can't just forget it. It stays in your mind like a song you can't stop humming. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, says that Meghan Markle has a past that is much different than what we see on TV. This part of her life was never meant to be talked about in public or debated by people on the internet. It wasn't something people were supposed to guess about. It was a secret hidden far away from Prince Harry and the tall gates of the royal palace. Instead, this story happened out on the open water, where the waves are high and the cameras can't see. It happened on Prince Andrew's private yacht. This is the part where things start to get very serious and a little bit scary. Sarah Ferguson isn't just telling stories or making guesses. She's saying something much more dangerous. She claims she has real things that belong to the past. She says she has private letters that were never supposed to be read by anyone else. She says she has recordings of voices that were never meant to be heard. These are moments from a long time ago that were saved in a way that makes them impossible to ignore. They are like ghosts of the past that are still here, just waiting for someone to find them. According to her, Meghan wasn't just a visitor in Prince Andrew's world. She had a specific job or a reason for being there. Sarah used a phrase that makes people feel very uneasy. She called Meghan his first client. If that one little phrase is even a tiny bit true, then the story we all know about how Meghan became a duchess doesn't just have a small crack in it, it completely falls apart. And now, Sarah Ferguson is telling everyone that she is writing a whole book that will tell every single secret about Meghan Markle. Once you understand what this means, everything you thought you knew about the royal family will look totally different. Words can be very powerful. Some words are used just to tell a funny story or spread a little bit of gossip. But other words are used to show that someone had a plan. When Sarah Ferguson called Meghan Markle Prince Andrew's first client, she did not pick that word by mistake. She didn't say it just to be mean or to start a rumor. This wasn't the kind of word people use when they are talking about a boyfriend and girlfriend or a sweet romance. It was a very specific word, and it feels very heavy. A client is not just a person who ends up somewhere by accident. A client is someone who has an agreement or a deal. It means there was a plan and an expectation that something would happen. It suggests that something was being traded or given, even if no one wrote it down on a piece of paper for the public to see. Using that one word, client, changes everything. It makes it seem like Meghan being on those big boats with Prince Andrew wasn't just a coincidence or a lucky invite. It makes it look like she was there for a reason, and everyone knew what that reason was. According to Sarah's story, Meghan wasn't just a friend who came along to a party for fun. She was someone Prince Andrew noticed a long time ago. She was someone he talked to in private. She was someone whose role was much more than just being nice at a dinner party. This is where the story turns into a mystery. If Meghan really was Andrew's first client, it might mean this was the start of a pattern. It shows a moment where being famous, being close to powerful people, and having a big opportunity all came together in secret. For Prince Harry, hearing this word would feel like a giant punch to the stomach. Harry has spent many years trying to stay as far away from Prince Andrew as possible. He told the world he didn't like what his uncle stood for. But now, the woman he married and protected from everyone is being linked to that same dark world. This isn't just an embarrassing story. It is something that could break a person's heart and make them question everything they believe in. Sometimes we remember things wrong, or we change stories in our heads. We can ask if someone is telling the truth or if they have a reason to lie. But when there is physical evidence, real things you can touch and see, the story becomes much more real. According to Sarah Ferguson, this is the point where the story became impossible to turn away from. She claims she found letters. These weren't just hello notes or polite letters saying thank you. They were private messages that connected Meghan directly to the days she spent on Prince Andrew's yacht. These letters were personal and friendly. They were written in a way that showed the two people knew each other very, very well. The handwriting on the paper mattered a lot. The things mentioned in the letters mattered too. Sarah says the letters had tiny details that only someone who was actually on the boat would know. They talked about inside jokes, funny moments, and parts of the boat that people on the outside would never see. This wasn't how strangers talked to each other. When Sarah read them, she knew exactly what they meant. She didn't think it was just a mistake or a misunderstanding. She saw the letters as proof. They were proof that the connection she remembered was real, and it wasn't just a dream or a rumor. For a long time, these letters were hidden away where the public couldn't see them. They were kept in a safe place, but they were also feared. People were afraid of what would happen if those letters ever came out. Once a piece of paper speaks, it doesn't take sides. It just tells the truth of what happened. With these letters, the story moved past just he said, she said. It became a story about something you could hold in your hands and show to the world. Even though letters are a big deal, some people might still say they are fake. People might say the ink is old or the paper isn't real. But voices are different. When you hear a person's voice, everything changes. Once recordings started being talked about, the story wasn't just floating quietly on the ocean anymore. It was moving fast, like a storm heading for the shore. Sarah Ferguson says that the thing that really broke the secret was audio recordings. These aren't just descriptions of what happened. They are actual sounds of people talking. She claims these recordings have the voices of Prince Andrew and Meghan Markle from back when they were on the yacht. In the recordings, they sound very relaxed and comfortable with each other. They talk like people who have been friends for a long time. It is the kind of voice people use when they think no one else is listening or recording them. This is the point where there is no turning back. A voice has a special sound, a rhythm, and a feeling that belongs only to one person. You can't pretend a voice belongs to someone else. For Prince Harry, the thought of his wife's voice being on a secret tape with his uncle Andrew would be a total nightmare. He really dislikes Andrew, and finding out they were close would be almost too much to handle. Once you hear a recording like that, you don't just hear noise. You hear history being rewritten right in front of you. Having these recordings means the story isn't just a maybe anymore. It's not something you just have to believe or not believe. It becomes something that could be played on the news at any time for everyone to recognize. Just knowing those tapes exist is enough to make the whole royal family feel very shaky and nervous. No one has been hurt more by these stories than Prince Harry. Harry has spent his whole adult life trying to be a different kind of person. He wanted to get away from the secrets of the royal family. He wanted to get away from the things his uncle Andrew was involved in. He made it very clear that he wanted nothing to do with that part of his family. He drew a line in the sand and walked away. He even moved across the ocean to start a new life. But now these claims say that the past crossed that line without him knowing. Imagine how much that would hurt. The woman Harry loved and protected against the whole world, and the uncle he tried so hard to stay away from were suddenly tied together by a secret history. This isn't just about being jealous or having hurt pride. It is a deep feeling of being tricked and embarrassed. Harry didn't just love Meghan, he fought a war for her. He told everyone she was innocent and that the media was being mean to her. He was like her knight in shining armor with a big shield. But a shield starts to break when it is protecting a story that might not be the whole truth. People close to the family say that Harry started to pull away from everyone. He was very angry one minute, and then he couldn't believe it the next. He wanted answers, but he also wanted to believe it wasn't true. Accepting that it might be true meant facing something worse than a lie. It meant realizing that he might have been the very last person to know a story that started a long time before he even met Meghan. Inside the royal family, they have a rule. If you don't talk about it, maybe it will go away. Silence is a choice they make on purpose. When these stories started moving through the private circles of the palace, no one came out to say they were wrong. There was no big announcement saying the stories were lies. Instead, there were very quiet meetings behind big doors. There were phone calls that didn't lead to any public news. The palace knew that this was a very big problem. Prince Andrew's other mistakes had already hurt the royal family a lot. To have Meghan Markle, a woman who has been very critical of the family, linked to Andrew's private world was more than just a little embarrassing. It was a disaster. So the royals decided not to fight it out in the open. They tried to keep it all contained, like putting a lid on a boiling pot. They stayed silent because if they talked about the story, it might make people think it was true. But if they said it was a lie, someone might bring out the proof. And according to Sarah Ferguson, that proof is real and the palace can't control it. Behind the scenes, the people in charge weren't feeling brave anymore. They were scared. They weren't just scared of the newspapers. They were scared of what else might come out if people started digging deeper. The royal family has survived many big storms over hundreds of years, but this storm was different. It threatened to connect too many bad things all at once. That is why no one was in a hurry to speak up. This wasn't a story that Sarah Ferguson wanted to tell right away. She actually kept it a secret for a very long time. But when she finally decided to speak, she didn't just drop hints. She said it directly. She said that Meghan had many meetings on Prince Andrew's yachts, and those meetings were not just by chance. If this is true, it doesn't just add a small note to Meghan's past. It completely changes the beginning of her story as a royal. For Harry, a man who tried his whole life to get out of Andrew's shadow, this is heartbreaking. Secrets hurt the most when they come from the people you trust the most in the world. The yacht isn't just a place in this story. It is the most important part. According to Fergie, the boats were built for one main reason: privacy. When you are out on the ocean, you are far away from the news and people who might see you. The normal rules of how to behave don't matter as much when you are in the middle of the sea. Famous names and important titles don't mean the same thing there. What happened on the boat was supposed to stay on the boat. These weren't just short trips for one day. They were trips that happened over and over again. They were places where powerful people could relax and not worry about anyone finding out what they were doing. There was lots of expensive drinks, lots of talking, and people became very close away from the eyes of the world. Sarah Ferguson says Meghan was not a stranger to this secret world. She wasn't someone who just ended up there once by mistake. She was someone who came back. She was someone people recognized. She knew how that world worked. This is why the yacht is so important. It explains how a future duchess could be hidden in the royal shadows long before the world ever knew her name. In the end, the part of the story that makes people feel the most nervous isn't what we know, it's what we still don't know. Sarah Ferguson says that somewhere out there, letters still exist that have never been shown to the public. There are recordings that the world has never heard. There is evidence that is still being kept secret. It isn't hidden because it's boring. It's hidden because it is too powerful. And in the middle of it all is that big boat. It was a vessel that once moved quietly across the water, carrying secrets and moments that no one thought would matter years later. It was a place where people didn't guard their reputations. It was where they whispered their true plans. It was where history changed direction, and no one even noticed it was happening. Prince Harry thought he was escaping the past when he left the royal palace and moved away. But the past doesn't care how far you run. It waits for you. It comes back to the surface like a bubble in the water. And sometimes, it comes back with names you never expected to hear together in the same sentence. Whether these secrets are ever fully told to everyone or if they stay locked away in a box, one thing is for sure. The story Meghan told the world might not have started where she said it did. If that yacht could talk, if its wooden decks and quiet rooms could tell us what they saw, this would not be the end of the story. It would only be the very beginning. Ghosts from the past don't just go away when you leave them behind. They follow you wherever you go.